Well, hello, BookTube. It is finally Friday afternoon, a little after 5, and I'm finally getting to record this. I didn't even know if I would actually record it today by the end of the day because I didn't know if I would just be, my brain would be mush and I wouldn't be able to put coherent thoughts together about books, but I'm feeling like I can do it. It has been a heck of a week, which has led me to be behind on almost everything. But so this was President's Day week. Is that what it was? Yeah. And so it was a short work week to begin with. But then was it Wednesday? I'm getting mixed up now. Whatever day. Earlier this week, my son, my kids are adults, so my son, who lives on his own, called in the evening because his cat was having some urinary tract problems, and it was pretty severe. It was, and also pretty evident that we were going to, I met him there. We were going to have to go to the vet hospital. So there's a really big vet hospital ER nearby, and it's kind of equal distance between where he lives in the city and where I live. So we met there because he's just never gone through anything like this. He's had the cat for 2 years. Buddy hasn't had any problems. And I actually still have my work email open because I was waiting to see if I got an email back, but no. Okay. And so yes, it was an issue where he had to stay overnight and be monitored. And then yesterday at lunchtime, I went and picked him up from the hospital. Ryan came home from work, met me. His sister came, got the prescription food. It was a family affair. So we all got it done together. Buddy is wearing a cone for a few days to prevent him from licking certain parts, and he's taking pain medication, which keeps him nice and relaxed. And but everything's fine, but it's been very discombobulating. First, because we were worried, but secondly, just because I'm rushing around at lunchtime, and that's never fun. And I really just wanted to stay there all afternoon yesterday. I did not want to come home. But anyway, that's that. I have been managing to read right before I go to bed, so for not very long. But I also read in the morning after I have coffee and before I work out. I'm reading, as all of you know by now, War and Peace, a chapter a day. So I love the routine of reading a chapter. And then I have incorporated reading a couple pages of whatever one of the books I happen to be reading at the time. Oh, here comes Suki. If it's the right book that I feel I can read for a couple pages in the morning, whatever that means. We readers, you understand what I mean. If it's just that kind of book. So I'll explain what kind of book I've picked to do that with, because War and Peace chapters are pretty short. So anyway, starting off, I wanted to talk about this book of it's not short stories, it's actually essays. It's called A Left-Handed Woman. So, if I read about this book somewhere like the New York Times, I'm going to get it out of the library automatically because it's called The Left-Handed Woman. This woman, Judith Thurman, is a staff writer for the New Yorker magazine. I've been a subscriber to the New Yorker magazine, whether it was print or now digital, since the 90s. But I don't know this woman. I do not know her. It says winner of the National Book Award. So when I read about this book, I'm sure it was in the New York Times or the New Yorker. It got my attention. I'm not a short stories or an essays person, but I can usually handle essays if they're engaging. And I read a couple of them. I handpicked which ones I was going to read, and then I started skimming and I lost interest. So, but I just wanted to bring it to your attention as a book you might be interested in. I'm a fussy short story and essay reader. But speaking of, I'll put this over here. Speaking of short stories, I did want to say, because I was thinking about this today at lunchtime in terms of short stories, because I'm not really a short story reader, I have to say, I think this shows up backwards, but the Clarice Lispector complete stories, so in this case it's complete short stories collection, top notch, top notch, top notch. Any single story I read blows your mind, blows my mind anyway. This is my introduction to her writing, and I have loved every short story. I've probably read 4 so far. I'm in a Clarice Lispector short story reading group, which is a very loose group. We're reading short stories from this book, but in no specific order, and we're just commenting on them. But if any of you have this book and you've been meaning to get to the stories I have read so far, Obsession, wonderful. The Fever Dream was even better. And something called, am I going to get to it? I can't find it here, but I know it's called something like Buffalo. Buffalo is, I'm just going to use the word amazing. An amazing short story. It's kind of like lesson 101 of how to write an impactful short story. And if I'm getting that wrong, if it's not called Buffalo at all, I'll let you know. But I think it is. All right, now something that I started reading. So I don't read a lot of new releases. I go through time periods of reading new releases, like when the Women's Book Prize is announced, or certainly by the time the shortlist comes out, and then the Booker Prize shortlist, or maybe some from the long list. So those are new releases. But because of all the buzz, something made me pick up this book, Vladimir. This has one of the most awful covers. It's by Julia May Jonas. The UK cover is, of course, better. But the thing that really hooked me about this book, some of the reviews I was reading, it's either in the New York Times or the New Yorker, was it's in an academic setting. And it really focuses on, what is the woman's name? She's an English professor. So, academic setting, small liberal arts college. This woman, really the protagonist, whose name I can't see here at all. Do we even know her name? Well, anyway, the female protagonist is married to another professor at the college, and he's under investigation for inappropriate relationships with former students. And then there's a new professor that comes to the college. His name is Vladimir Vladinsky, a celebrated young novelist. And she becomes increasingly obsessed with Vladimir, but then she meets his wife and she likes his wife. And it is known from the very beginning, so this is not a spoiler, that the female character and her husband have an open marriage, and then it goes into why that's the case. So I loved the beginning, but then as the book went on, and there was interactions between her and her daughter, and her and her husband, and so on and so on and so on, I became so disinterested. I did not like the dialogue at all. And I just feel like it falls apart. But that beginning was fantastic. I was like, wow, this is going to be a real page turner. And then, no, it was not for me at all, I have to say. And then, So a little while ago, I read Gwendoline Riley's book called My Phantoms, which is a story about her parents. It mainly focuses on her mother. That's what a lot of people talk about. But I really felt like there was a lot there about her father, too. So not just her mother, which is where most of the dialogue happens for 3/4 of the book. But I just felt like it had as much to do with the father relationship. So this is another book. I don't know which one she wrote first, but this is called First Love. And it has a bit of the same framework to it, except it's focusing more on the female protagonist's relationship with her husband. So I'm just going to read a little bit of the blurb because I feel like it does a good job. Neve, that's her name. Neve is a writer in her mid-30s, married to an older man, Edwin. For now, they're in a place of relative peace, but their past battles have left scars. As Neve recalls the decisions that led her to this marriage, she tells of other loves and other debts, from her bullying father, that's familiar, and her self-involved mother. And it goes on and on and on. Well, I mean, that is the characters that we meet in My Phantoms, like the types of parents. But I don't think this is connected to that story because I don't think the other main character in My Phantoms is named Neve. So it is interesting. I think I'm just going to love Gwendoline Riley's writing. It's just interesting to me that this has at least the same type of framework, but this is connected more with Neve and her current relationship and her past relationships. So I'm enjoying the writing. I don't know that I really care about the characters in a way that with My Phantoms, I don't know that I really cared about the characters, but I was interested because the writing was so unique. So I should have checked to see which book she wrote first. I think it's this book she wrote first because it says it was written in 2017, and I think My Phantoms was written in the 2020s. So yeah, that's that. And then I've made it a priority, or not a priority, a focus, to read more Barbara Pym. I have these things written on my whiteboard. Barbara Pym, Barbara Cummins, Marjorie Sharp, and Jean Rhys. I've not read any Jean Rhys. I read one Barbara Cummins, which I didn't like, and I mentioned that before. But so I'm reading Glass of Blessings, and this is one that I heard a lot about. Some people think that it's her best book. It was written later in her writing career, in the 80s. But I wanted to show you. So this is you can tell it's a very old book from the library. But you see, it has still the card in it from the 1980s. Let's see. It was last stamped October 12th, 1984. I graduated high school in 1983. So great. So I guess if the Carnegie Library still has a book in their inventory that's this old, and that doesn't happen very often because I think these books just wear out, they don't touch the card inside. I love it. So anyway, let me talk about the book. I did want to read some of this too because I think it does a good job because I'm conflicted about this book. The Guardian, Philip Larkin has called it the subtlest of her books. I don't know. The Guardian called it the best of Pym's novels. A Glass of Blessings is a beautiful high comedy. I don't know if it's a high comedy, full of hidden flirtations and suppressed emotions, for sure. The heroine of the book is Wilmette Forsythe, a young and leisured woman bored with her excessively sober civil servant husband. You do not pick up probably from any of Pym's books that someone is young because they all act pretty old-fashioned and proper. Her near romances with a priest, her best friend's husband, and the wayward Piers Longridge are only some of the pairings in this intricate drama of romantic errors. It's just so interesting, this one, because Pym, I mean, I loved Excellent Women. That's probably my favorite Pym. And I also loved Quartet in Autumn. Is that what it is? Quartet in Autumn, of Autumn. And then I've read Some Tame Gazelle. Maybe one other one. But this one, it's written in such a way that these other men that she's interacting with are so flirtatious in the way that they keep asking her out for lunch and for dinner and whatnot. And she goes with them. But I mean, it's all very proper, and they're talking about ordinary things. Maybe they're talking about the church or social things in how they're crossing over, or maybe they're talking about a party that's happening where everyone's going to be there, including Wilmot's husband, whose name I think is Rodney. But yeah, she's meeting with as they say, this Piers guy who's an interesting character. He's really the character that's pulling me along, because it's a big question mark. And then her best friend's husband, whose name is, I think, Kevin. It's so strange the way that even her husband talks about her very good friendships with Kevin and now with Piers. Yeah, so I think it's a unique book in that way. I don't know if it's high comedy, though. But maybe that's just an old-fashioned term from the 80s. Yeah, so I'm enjoying it. I don't, it's hard. So, I mean, I'm going to try to think about these books on their own instead of trying to compare one with the other, which is what you normally end up doing. But yeah, I'm enjoying it. It reads really quickly, and I'll be done with it soon. And then the other book that I just decided to pick up, and I think I mentioned this last week, is Anthony Trollope's The Warden. And this is it 1 in 4 books that make up the Chronicles? But I picked this up because I heard so many people talking about it on the book podcast that I listen to that love it, and it's in their descriptions of these Chronicles, the 3 or 4 book series. There's humor, there's drama, there's intrigue, and they're wanting to know what happens between the books, and I was hooked. So I just didn't think Trollope could be so humorous, and I am absolutely loving that. It's very just pulls you right in. And if somebody would have said, oh, well, do you want to read an Anthony Trollope that has to do with politics and religion and small town politics and religion, I would have said, no, I can't imagine that being any interesting or engaging. Probably very dry. It's not like that at all. So again, I'm going to read a little bit from the back because I also think it captures it really well. The tranquil atmosphere of the cathedral town of Barchester is shattered when a scandal breaks concerning the financial affairs of a church-run almshouse for elderly men. In the ensuing furor, Septimus Harding, the almshouse's well-meaning warden, finds himself pitted against his daughter's suitor, Dr. John Bold, a zealous local reformer. And then it goes on to say, this is the first volume of Trollope's Chronicles of Barsetshire. Now, the thing that I don't know, this is just a minor thing, I don't know why it's called Chronicles of Barsetshire when in fact it takes place in Barchester, which is a fictional town. It has a really wonderful introduction to it. I say really wonderful. I haven't read it yet, but it looks really wonderful. But I'm skipping it because, as I often do, because I feel like it's going to give too much away, and I love to just go back and read the introduction later, which is also what I'm doing for Barbara Pym. Looks like it's got a great introduction, but I'm waiting. So yeah, I'm really enjoying this. This is the book that I read 1 or 2 pages of in the morning after War and Peace, because that's just about what I have time for. But it's very engaging, and I'm going to start reading this also at night I've really left off reading First Love. I need to get back to it in order to finish it and return it to the library, so I'll do that. The one other thing I want to mention on this rambling video is I have a ton of books to pick up from the library this weekend. They're all coming in at once. These, I think it's a mix of books that I ordered that are not new and a couple new ones or newer ones that I've read about. So I'm going to have so many books. I may end up doing a video just on the books I have from the library, not really so much a reading update, but I'll let you know. I've gone on long enough. Please let me know about any of these books that you're reading yourself, how you felt about Vladimir, if you ended up reading it. Also, how you felt about First Love from Gwendoline Riley. And if you're a Barbara Pym fan, I would love to know what you think about Glass Full of Blessings in comparison to other books that you've read. And I would love to hear from the Trollope fans that have read the Barsetshire Chronicles, because I hear there's another set of chronicles or set of books or a trilogy that other people on Bookstagram are reading that look just as good. So I hope you have a wonderful weekend and week of reading, and I'll talk to you later.